Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 1516B, and today's date is March 8th, 2018, and the title of the episode is, Listen, the silence is deafening. Something is about to happen. Now, before I get started, I just want to make an announcement. I uploaded a new interview with Lior Gans. It is on the X22 Report Spotlight YouTube channel. So you can go over to YouTube and you can type in X22 Report Spotlight. It'll bring you right to that interview. Or you can come over to the X22Report.com or NewSentinel.com sites. Scroll down a little bit, look over to your right-hand side. You'll see the interview right on the site, and you can play it right there. Or you can go to Steemit. That is steemit.com/@X22Report, and you can play it right on Steemit. Let's get into the economic collapse, political and geopolitical news. Now, we're starting to see a lot of government officials starting to vacate the premises, especially around the Trump administration. We also see John McCain. He's expected to step down. Senate officials confirmed John McCain expected to step down from the U.S. Senate. And I would expect many more individuals. Now, of course, he has an illness, but I would expect others to start stepping down because they see the writing on the wall. And if these individuals are implicated in any type of crimes, because there are investigations going on, they're going to be in a lot of trouble. We see the House Select Committee on Intelligence has John Kerry in its crosshairs. And this has to do with the Steele dossier. Now, of course, between the years of 2014 and 2016, Steele authored more than 100 reports on Russia and Ukraine. These were written for a private client but shared widely within the State Department and sent up to Secretary of State John Kerry and the Assistant Secretary of State Victoria Nuland, who was in charge of the coup d'etat in Ukraine. So we see right now that they have some connection, and they are now being investigated to see what they knew about what was going on. And we have many different investigations going on all at once. And we can see that this is getting deeper. They're looking at paperwork. They're looking at where the money has been flowing. They've been looking at the Clinton foundations. They've been looking at pretty much everything. And we can see at this time, the deep state, they're getting very, very nervous. They're worried. They're afraid. They're getting nervous, which means most likely they're going to do something. Actually, the news cycles have been very slow. The other event is over, and the silence is deafening. Every time the news cycles seem to slow, and the intelligence agencies really aren't feeding the corporate media that much, and they have nothing to report on, usually is a sign, and I've noticed this in the past, that something is about to happen. Now, it doesn't happen every single time, but I notice that when the news cycles start to really slow down, it seems like they're building up to something big, and they're getting ready to have some type of an event, and they're getting ready to push out all the stories. And it looks like we might be heading in that direction, and we know from Olay and others, even Q, saying that something might happen in Texas, or it could happen anywhere else, but it has to happen soon, because we can see right now that the entire momentum, well, it's dissipating very, very quickly. And they're going to have to do something sooner or later to keep the momentum alive. Now, this could happen in North Korea, because we know Q gave us a sign. And Q is an individual. We don't know if it's a group of people, a he or she, who is dropping intel from inside of the White House. And people are saying, well, how could this be? Well, someone in there is feeding information to the Chan boards. And every so often, they prove that they are inside and they do have access to Trump and the White House. So this is where this information is coming from, for those people who are wondering, who Q is. And a lot of it turns out to be true. Some of it didn't even happen yet. But once again, we can see that there's a lot of information and you got to make sense of it. It's done in code. It'd be a lot easier if it wasn't done in code. But we can see that there are still deep state operatives within the White House. There's deep state operatives in the intelligence agency still, in the Pentagon, and throughout government. And I'm sure they're not ready to just broadcast all the information out there. And we see at this time that everything the deep state has been trying to do, it's been failing. Now, they've been trying to get Venezuela, they've been trying to get North Korea, they've been trying to get into Syria, they've been trying to get Ukraine. Of course, they wanted Crimea and the southeastern area of Ukraine. They tried all of this, and it was one failure after another. Venezuela right now is looking to have presidential elections. They were announced, and the U.S. State Department moved quickly to declare that the elections will be illegitimate and that the results would not be recognized. Now, they did this in Syria, where they said, oh, the people voting for Assad, we don't recognize that. Now, international auditors came in, they watched the elections. They don't do that here in the United States, but they do it in other countries. And I think in Venezuela, most likely they'll have the same exact thing. Now, the reason why they don't want to recognize the elections in Venezuela is because they don't want the people supporting Maduro, if this does happen this way. Or they don't want someone else getting into power that they don't want in power. This is why they are saying this, because they want regime change there. They want regime change in North Korea. They wanted it in Ukraine, which they got. They wanted it in Syria, which they were having trouble doing. They did it in Libya. They did it in Lebanon. They did it in Iraq. They did it everywhere. But we see right now, they are running out of time. Everything that they set up is completely falling apart. The invasion into North Korea, not happening. Syria, the troops are going to be leaving Syria very soon. Iraq wants the troops out of their country. They want the deep state out of their country. And everything that they've been pushing, the deep state, all this time, has not worked out for them. They're losing control. And as they continually lose control, it becomes more and more difficult for them to do things. Now, do they have control of the corporate media? Yes. Do they still have control of the intelligence apparatus? To some extent. They still have power. They're not beaten as of yet. But we're getting to that point. Now, what's very interesting is that the U.S. Justice Department is going to release documents related to the Fast and Furious scandal. And now, all this information was withheld by former Attorney General Eric Holder. And now it is going to be released to see exactly what was happening. And there are certain individuals that we always thought were implicated in this. And it looks like Sessions is pushing that. Sessions is also pushing that they have appointed a person outside of Washington to investigate FISA. Now, what's interesting is Q dropped more information today, said, do you trust Sessions? Boom. And I think this whole thing of Trump coming out, telling Sessions he's weak, this was part of the act once again, and it looks like they're going outside of the White House, getting some type of special investigators to look into the FISA abuse. Why outside? Because I think they don't know who they can trust inside, and it's better to go outside to find and to investigate and to report on. And I think this is exactly what's happening, and Trump is already approving this. We see right now that Q is out there telling us about the Internet Bill of Rights, and what's very interesting is that the Trump campaign manager for Trump's 2020 re-election, Brad Parscale, was out there and he was warning big tech companies, we are watching. And he warned Google, Facebook, Twitter to maintain a level playing field. Now, this is very interesting because, as we know, on YouTube, there are many channels that are being brought down. On Google, websites have been removed from the search. And at this point in time, the whole purpose of the Internet Bill of Rights is to allow every single person to have free speech and not take sides. Now, people say, well, Google is a private company, YouTube is a private company, Facebook is a private company. You can't impose the free speech stuff on them. Well, not necessarily. Because you need to understand, Google, is it really a private company? Well, they do get funding from the government. The intelligence agencies helped design Google. It received grants from the CIA and NSA, and the NSA and multiple defense contractors helped the company Google to design their infrastructure. And if Google's partnership is with the intelligence community and they work closely together, it's not really a private company then. It's actually kind of part of the government. And I think this is why Trump, at this point, where companies that are receiving grants from these different organizations within government, well, they have to abide by the same exact rules. And I think this is what the Internet Bill of Rights is going to be. And we see that things that Q has been dropping, they are definitely coming out now. Now, I said this a little while ago, where the news cycles right now, they're dying down. Today it's just extremely quiet. And we know that there's going to be, I believe, a march on the 24th about, gun control. And I think they're going to need some type, and I say they, the deep state, is going to need some type of an event from now until that point in time, because as more and more days pass, people forget, the issues die down, and the march is not going to have the impact that they want. So this is why Q is out there saying there's going to be a dead cat bounce. This is why Ole was out there saying, look at March 18th, where he believes all the clues are leading towards Dallas, and the hospital where JFK died was Parkland. So it all kind of fits together where this is where they might have their next event. Now, it doesn't mean they're going to have the event at this point in time and in this location. It might not happen. I mean, we might see something happen in North Korea where it just clogs the news cycles, or something might happen out in Syria. But we can see right now something is on its way. I don't believe it's months away. I think it's days away. Could be completely wrong, but again, I've noticed in the past, these are patterns, and this is definitely a pattern that I check off each time it occurs, and then something happens. So I just wanted to let everyone know what is happening here and what I have noticed in the past. So we need to understand that we're getting different messages from Q, from Ole, from what we know, that something most likely is on its way. And once again, the deep state, they are just trying to control the narrative, control what is going on. And I think every single day they're losing control. We can see it from out in the Middle East that they've lost pretty much almost everything right now. I mean, think about it. At one point in time, they were almost ready to take over Syria. I mean, the Islamic State had almost the entire country. And now they've been whittled down to nothing. And in Iraq, they never could win against the Islamic State. And now, all of a sudden, the Iraqi troops, they have the ability to beat the Islamic State. Especially when the deep state doesn't get involved. And what this all means is that their funding is being cut off. Remember, Russia came in and they took out the oil convoys to the Islamic State, where they were shipping oil from Syria into Turkey. And this kept them operational. The dollar is their source of funding, coming from the central bank, because they can create that out of thin air. And of course, we know that there's like 21 trillion that is completely missing. A lot of the money went to Afghanistan. That's completely missing. No schools were really built, and everything that was planned never happened because all these funds were diverted to other places. And I think what's happening right now is that Trump and those patriots are trying to cut off the funding to the deep state. And if you cut off the funding to the deep state, remember, a lot of these corporate news outlets, they're subsidized by the government, by the way, by the intelligence agencies. If you cut off the funding, everything comes to an end. They can't push their operations. They can't use the poppy fields in Afghanistan if you cut that off, which they've already closed the routes from Pakistan. Troops are already in there destroying the poppy fields, and I'm not talking the Taliban poppy fields. I'm talking about the U.S. protected poppy fields, and I should say the CIA, the intelligence community poppy fields. And we can see right now they're trying to shut down the funding to the deep state. And once they do that, the deep state is finished. And this is what we're observing right now. Then you go after all these individuals. Now, a lot of them, I know people are saying, military tribunals. I think a lot of these individuals are going to run. I think a lot of them are going to commit suicide. I don't think many of them are going to stand trial because I don't think their brains work that way. Like, okay, I've been caught, let me stand trial in front of the American people. No way. They're going to run and hide or suicide themselves. And we're getting closer and closer to that point. But first, their funding needs to be cut off. And how do you do that? Well, you got to get rid of the source, and that is the central banking system. And this is why I keep repeating it. This is why Trump has Andrew Jackson hanging in his office. He campaigned. His whole campaign was getting rid of the central bank, which he accomplished. I mean, they tried to kill him. It didn't work. They made an attempt on his life. It didn't happen. And he was able to get rid of the central bank. And I think the ultimate move is to get rid of the central bank. Just like there was a move to have peace in North Korea, there was a move to divert everyone's attention away from what was really happening in Syria, where we weren't bringing in troops, we weren't invading. Actually, we're pulling troops out of there. We're removing the funding from all those groups in Syria. And I think the same thing's happening right now. Using the deep state's method, the way they pass bills, slipping an amendment in the Senate bill to get it passed, have Trump sign off on it, and have the Fed audited to bring the system down. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.